welcome to Dr. Aparna's Healthcare. So today we are going to discuss about the 6 warning signs and symptoms of vitamin D deficiency, and let's discuss also how to overcome the vitamin D deficiency. So to understand that, first let's understand about the vitamin D. So vitamin D is actually a prohormone. That means it is required for the synthesis and proper functioning of other hormone. And unlike other vitamins, vitamin D can be synthesized in body when there is adequate amount of exposure to sunlight. Okay, now let's understand what are the 6 warning signs and symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. So the first and foremost important sign of vitamin D deficiency is extreme tiredness or fatigue. The person feels extremely tired without any reason, without doing any physical activity also the person would be feeling very much tired. Okay. The next important symptom of vitamin D deficiency is hair fall. So if you experience hair fall since a long period of time, even after taking a lot of medication, even after taking a lot of precautions for hair fall, and still if you experience hair fall, the reason for it could be vitamin D deficiency. Another important symptom of vitamin D deficiency is severe body ache. There will be muscle pain, especially pain of the muscles of back, neck and your legs. This is because fibromyalgia, that is myalgia means actually the pain and weakness of muscles, are usually associated with vitamin D deficiency. Another common problem associated with vitamin D deficiency is extreme irritability, mood change, anxiety and palpitation. So there will be extreme irritability. The person may get easily depressed or easily sad when there is a excessive deficiency of vitamin D, and in severe cases it can even lead to depression. So one of the reason could be is that decrease in the serotonin level caused because of the vitamin D deficiency. So whenever there is a vitamin D deficiency, it causes decreased production of serotonin hormone. So serotonin is actually the hormone which is called as happy hormone. So when there is decreased production of serotonin, it can lead to it can actually affect your emotion. It can even cause anxiety and sadness and all these things. And another important warning sign of the vitamin D deficiency is poor wound healing. Okay, it may take a lot of time for wound to heal properly. Another important symptom that is seen associated with vitamin D deficiency is decreased immunity. The person may fall sick very frequently, and also the person may have sleep deprivation. The person may not get proper sleep. So these are some of the warning signs and symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. If you experience any of the following symptoms, do not wait. Consult your doctor as early as possible, and the doctor will advise you to do a blood test. So there are different multiple blood tests are available to check the level of vitamin D. The commonly advised test is the level of 25 hydroxy vitamin D level. That is 25 OHD test is commonly done, and the normal level of vitamin D is 20 to 50 nanogram per milliliter. So if your level of vitamin D is less than 20 nanogram, you are said to be having vitamin D deficiency. It's moderate deficiency is there, and if the level is less than 10 nanogram per milliliter, it could be severe deficiency of vitamin D. Now let's understand what are the causes for this vitamin D deficiency. So the first and foremost important cause for vitamin D deficiency is inadequate exposure to sunlight. So sunlight, as we know, is a major source of vitamin D. So the inadequate exposure can lead to vitamin D deficiency. So nowadays we try to avoid the maximum exposure to sunlight. We tend to use a lot of sunscreen. So sunscreen is actually a great news to prevent skin cancer. But when considering the vitamin D deficiency, it's really bad to use sunscreen all the time. Okay, the next important cause for vitamin D deficiency is because of the obesity. So obesity could be another reason. Another important reason is if you have any kind of liver disease or any kind of kidney disease. So when there is any kind of liver problem or kidney problem, the synthesis of vitamin D will not be taking place in the right way, and this can also lead to vitamin D deficiency. Another major problem which causes vitamin D deficiency is if there is any kind of malabsorption, or if you suffer from any of the malabsorption diseases. If the proper absorption is not taking place in the gut, this can also cause vitamin D deficiency. It is also associated with the medications that you take for some conditions, like some medication and can also cause vitamin D deficiency. And these medications include antifungals, the medicines for convulsion, medicines for HIV and AIDS, steroids, etc. Another major cause for vitamin D deficiency is the increasing pollution. Another important constituent which causes vitamin D deficiency is a particular component called the bisphenol A. So this bisphenol A is actually an important constant of many of the plastic. So nowadays we all tend to use a lot of mineral water. So this mineral water will be stored in the plastic containers, and when this mineral water bottle is exposed to sunlight or any form of heat, it causes the bisphenol A from this plastic to get into the water, and when we consume this bisphenol A, this can actually lead to several severe vitamin D deficiency. So these are some of the causes for the vitamin D deficiency. Now let's understand what are the consequences of vitamin D deficiency. So vitamin D deficiency, as we all know, can lead to several skeletal complaints or several bone complaints. It can lead to diseases like rickets, osteomalacia, osteopenia, etc. So the main reason for it is vitamin D is very much necessary for the absorption of calcium from the gut. So whenever there is vitamin D deficiency, it can affect the absorption and it can affect the metabolism of calcium, as well as it affects the metabolism of phosphate, and this in turn can lead to bone loss, osteopenia, osteomalacia, osteoporosis, etc. The bone density will be affected. It can lead to easy fracture of the bones. Another major problem it causes is increase in weight gain. It can cause obesity. So this obesity may be due to the increased cortisol production associated with vitamin deficiency. So whenever there is a vitamin deficiency, it can cause an increased level of cortisol in the body, which is actually a stress hormone, and this in turn can cause weight gain. Another important problem associated with vitamin D deficiency is that it can cause type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus. It can also cause severe hypertension and cardiovascular problems. It can also lead to several thyroid complaints, and this vitamin D deficiency is also linked to several type of cancers, and this include ovarian cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, etc. Another major problem associated with vitamin D deficiency is multiple sclerosis. It is also associated with several autoimmune disorders. So autoimmune disorders means those disorders in which the body attack its own cells. So these are some of the consequences which are linked to vitamin D deficiency. Now how to overcome this vitamin D deficiency? So to overcome this vitamin D deficiency, the first and most important thing you have to do is get adequate exposure to sunlight. Okay, so this adequate exposure of sunlight, for getting the adequate exposure also, the time is very important. Make sure that you get adequate exposure daily for nearly 10 to 15 minutes every day between the time 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So always there is a confusion regarding this timing. So make sure that you get adequate exposure between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Also, the color tone, the skin tone of the person is also very important. If you have a dark skin tone, you need to get exposed to sun more than a person who is actually having a fairer skin tone. This is because when you have a darker skin tone, that means your melanin is more and you have a more protection from the sun. So in order to produce the same amount of vitamin D when compared to a fairer person, you need to get more exposed to the sun. So for actually a fair person, the time of exposure to sun, the duration of exposure to sunlight may be 15 minutes to 20 minutes, while if you are of a whitish complexion, you require more than 20 minutes exposure, nearly 30 minutes exposure to the sunlight, and if you have a darker skin tone, nearly 45 minutes of exposure is very much required. This is a main thing you have to keep in mind when we say about the exposure to sunlight. That is, the duration of exposure as well as the time of exposure is very much important. Another thing that is to overcome the vitamin D deficiency is that take a diet which is rich in vitamin D, and this include mainly including the foods like dairy products, milk, fortified milk, especially yogurt, and also you can include almond milk, soya milk, etc. if you have a lactose intolerance. Also the food substances like mushroom is a good source of vitamin D. Fishes, especially fatty fish, salmon, etc. are good source of vitamin D. Fish liver oil, cod liver oil, egg yolk, etc. are also good source of vitamin D. So make sure that you include all this food also in your diet. But even though how much ever you take much care in your food, what is more important is getting adequate exposure to sunlight. And if your level of vitamin D is so less, make sure that you consult your doctor and get the proper prescription for vitamin D. Do not prescribe yourself for any kind of vitamin D deficiency, because the self prescription, it can lead to toxicity of vitamin D in the body. That is, if you are not consulting a doctor and if you are buying medicines by your own, when you take this medicine continuously for a long period of time, it can lead to hypertoxicity of vitamin D, and it can cause several other complaints like bone problem, kidney problem, etc. So I think now you have got an idea regarding the causes of vitamin D deficiency, the consequences of it, what are the warning signs, what is the normal range of vitamin D required by our body, and how to overcome the deficiency. So if you have any further queries, you can contact me, Dr. Aparna's Healthcare. Thank you.